not scared of ordinary shit, like murderers and ghosts and cancer on your skin. What up, everybody? It's me. And I'm your favorite homeless guy. And I'm from the Pleroma. And I'm driving down the road. I'm going to empty the trash out of my vehicle. Thank you to Roman and also Haley for the $20 because it's going to be negative 30s again this weekend. Hadn't mentioned it before, I'll mention it now. And I'm being honest about it. I had an instance with someone who lies to the police. Someone who's shown for many, many, many years that they have some type of level of narcissistic personality disorder, whether that's from escapism or trauma or what. There's no excuse for that. Which means that instead of being able to see other people for who they are, they see them in relation to what they can gain or how it pertains to their sense of self and ego. If somebody around them gets too much love and attention or affection, they get jealous and they go out of their way to kill that. That's just one part of this very complex individual, and that individual does things like constant smear campaigns and seeing a competition with me. And part of that was any way that they could continuously, at my detriment, promote themselves to be viewed a certain way, which in their case was a victim that needed sympathy that they would sort of farm to perpetuate their isolated, justified because of this suffering. They would sit alone. And I'm the opposite of that. But because of being the opposite of that, I have this sense of empathy where it's hard for me to distinguish the boundary between me and others. So when they say that the empaths attract the narcissist, when those people come into my life, I have trouble differentiating between my sense of self because trauma has destroyed it and these other people. It does feel like Vecna. You know, in Stranger Things, when they have this giant amalgamous tentacle thing that embeds itself into people and digs in and then consumes them until they're at the will and the extension of the ego of Vecna. That's what it feels like. But in the real world, which, as deep as you want to go, the CIA talks about spirit being real. Quantum physicists are quantifying and identifying and explaining spirituality. It's just the matter of how much do you want to think about it. And then you realize the spiritual stuff is real. The things I'm saying is real. It's not a schizophrenic delusion. To me, who seems to attract hordes of them all at once, especially if I'm free. Like, I got lots and lots of messages today when I decided to come off my week hiatus of content after I went for a month straight. As soon as I'm back, it was like everybody came out of the woodworks to attach, and it wasn't like anything good. To me, that feels like very vividly tons of Vecnas digging in. And I'll have these breakthroughs where I realize that I had lost myself along the way in fighting off those attachments. And you'll find that all over the internet people are saying that. That's how they feel. Narcissistic energy vamps that are constantly siphoning. I need to drive to talk, actually. So part of that was I got upset. I messaged that person and said, if you keep treating me like this because you're afraid I'm going to do something, which obviously wasn't the case. You could say they had a schizophrenic delusion and really assumed that I was somebody that I wasn't, that acted violently, even though I don't. And in those situations that they had called and reported me being disorderly, I was way too calm. Like, there was no hint of violence or out of control. But they filed a relief from abuse because I said, if you keep trying to do these things thinking I'm going to hurt you, it's going to make me want to hurt you. I said, I want to hurt you because of these things, not because I wanted to hurt you. Because of the stuff you keep doing to me makes me want to hurt you, so stop. Then I said, if there's a zombie apocalypse, I'll kill you. If you show up at my doorstep in a zombie apocalypse, I will kill you. So, because that's what real perpetual victims, things like that, is like giving them a piece, like a gold bar or something. It's like Christmas. They knew immediately, okay, I can use this and leverage it to continue perpetuating my agenda of making this person out to be the bad guy so that I can be seen as the victim and be rewarded with energy and sympathy by people I can manipulate into viewing me that way. I can perpetually attack the black sheep, baiting them into behavior I can use to character assassinate. So, the tactic became file a relief from abuse order. Just get him in any way. So then they got me. And then for the next 2 years, pretty much every day. Then it became like once a week. Then it became every other week. Then it would go back through periods of every day. Maybe the person is bipolar. But that person would reach out to me very frequently, and it would be illegal for me to do anything about it. The person would do things like send me money and offer to help me in my situation, because after that I had been victim of an actual police brutality that's resulted in the loss of my eyesight as well as the destruction of my dignity. I was basically molested. You know, I wasn't penetrated, but I was still molested. So that does a lot, especially after that, the news, after the police had done something very illegal and wrong, the news put out something false. They gave a false story about my behavior. They said I was disorderly, out of control, and fought violently against the police until I was ultimately taken into custody. When what really happened was I was completely calm. The person who called was in distress. I was nowhere near that person. And they attacked me. And I didn't even resist other than lifting my arms up and saying, "Why are you doing this? Stop." I should have said de-escalate, but instead I didn't know that word. I said, "Stop. What are you doing? I'm right here. Talk to me. Look at yourselves. I'm right here." And then they maced me and put me in jail for 4 days and didn't wash my eyes. No food or running water to wash it out of my eyes. And then I was molested. It is what it is, man. It wasn't terrible. It wasn't like the horror stories you've heard, but after all that circumstance, to have a cop press his fucking dick against the side of your face, and there's nothing you can do because you're travel cuffed, and you're well aware that they will just hurt you whenever they feel like it. So I just turned my head away. Hopefully that can explain to you why I felt perpetually trapped in that moment. Years where I just can't get their will out. You know, I can't get my boundaries back, and then everything that happens now is a destruction of the boundaries I'm trying hard to rebuild, and constantly losing and having to fight for my sense of self, undergoing much worse circumstances than that. And then I would get a text like, "Hey, do you need some money? Let me pay for your insurance. I'm paying for a storage unit for you. Do you want to come visit? We miss you." And then if I reached out, things would be fine until that person needed more of that narcissistic supply. Or an event would happen where I would be a victim of something else. Say, my father trying to kill me by grabbing my hair, throwing himself on the ground, pulling me to the ground, and trying to choke me to death. And I had to put my fingers into his eyes and push and say, "If you don't let go, I'm going to keep pushing." And he wouldn't stop, so I had to bend his back, and then he ran away and ran to that person's apartment because they were close, which caused them to lie to the police. Other than that instance, there were also just random instances where they would call. So we for months. randomly they would call when they felt like it, which happened to be on Thanksgiving. So I was arrested on Thanksgiving. I was ripped out of a Market 32 when I was Instacarting 3 different families Thanksgiving meals. So imagine I spent probably 3 hours picking up 3 different families' Thanksgiving meals to get it to them by lunch. And by the end of it, the cops are there waiting for me and just attack me and rip me out of the stuff. And I'm fired from Instacart, I'm fired from DoorDash, and I'm thrown in jail for 4 days over the Thanksgiving weekend. Everyone saw me in the Market 32 getting dragged out. And I didn't put up a fight. I just said stop. And they were aggressive. They threw me on the ground. I didn't fight with them. I didn't know that that's called excessive force and unnecessary escalation. I didn't know any of that terminology. So I didn't realize what they did was to put on a show for everybody. Just because they knew I was living in my car. They assumed I was doing drugs. So I cried and I was like begging them, please, just, I don't care, it's fine, just please, I'm gonna show you the address. Please help me separate the meals so that you can see which meals go to where, and then please deliver them for me. These are families' Thanksgiving meals. And they did one, and then they stole a lot of food for themselves, and I was fired from Instacart. Because of those violations of the relief from abuse, where it seemed like I would be baited in these like really long orchestrated plays, probably by some type of demonic intelligence, to be put in situations where it would set them off, and they had reached out to me enough, and I had responded to them enough. I never reached out to them, I don't think. And then I would be thrown in jail on a Friday for 4 days. So I spent a total of 75 days in county jail for that. And now, because, I mean, you can't not plead guilty to it. You can't say not guilty. So I said, hey, they had violated it every day, pretty much. Sometimes I wanted the people that said that they cared about me because I was going through a lot of stuff. The prosecution can tell you that that person is called and said that they were not honest and that they were weaponizing the relief from abuse whenever they felt like it. It wasn't that they were living in constant fear. They were never really living in constant fear. It was a narcissistic perpetuation of how they survived off of the sympathy of others for most of their life. Which needed a target. In order to be a perpetual victim, you need a target. And what I'm trying to say to the people, just to address it and then never talk about it again, is that I'm the literal opposite of that. When I'm not a narcissist that needs people to constantly validate me. I don't relish in compliments. When people say nice things to me, it doesn't hit me. Is that a car coming? Like, I'll read a comment that says, like, you're attractive and you're such a brave, pure soul and such a kind, and I'm calling back the memory. I just look at it and I move on. I think as a child I wanted so much to have attention from others that eventually I was isolated long enough. I realized that the internal validation matters more, and I hold myself to a different standard. And I mostly relish in the fact that I'm humble, which is really fun. It's ironic that I don't hold myself to characteristics, and like if somebody else gets the light and the shine and they make a good song, I don't feel competitive. I don't feel jealous that they made a song and are getting a lot of attention. I'm happy for the person, and I know that's rare. It's rare to see somebody winning nothing but admiration and joy for the other person, and it came from suffering. So I don't want people to think that I'm a braggadocious, arrogant piece of crap, perpetual victim. Because I'm not. When the camera's off, I'm fighting off trauma. I'm feeling these traps where I feel the actual abuse that I would need relief from. And I'm working through that, and also trying to get back the things that I've lost because my memories fade and I often feel trapped and stuck. So I'm trying to work through that. It's hard for me to allow myself to rest. If you notice, as soon as I got the car, I haven't stopped. I haven't taken a single day to just sit and enjoy the car. I went to one nature trail the other day, and I went on a walk without my phone. But before that, I got up every day and fought to make something happen. Like I said I was doing before I lost the car. There's a car coming. It might be a cop. And they know me now. Yeah, they did a U-turn, so they were just hanging out at the light. And then once they saw me turn my light off, they left. So it's probably a cop just patrolling. This is the richest part of the state. I'm in the wealthiest part of the state now, where like all these houses are worth over $1 million on Parcel Viewer. So they have some pretty aggressive guard dogs. The point is that because of pleading guilty to the relief from abuse, where somebody would reach out to me for months every day and we'd have full conversations, spend days together with my family, and then randomly when they needed that fix, whether you call it bipolar or what, at my expense, and I would be subjected to torture. It's not an over-dramatization, it sucks, and it happened. I pled guilty with time served, which means that I'm a felon, which means that I've applied to, I won't throw a number out there because I don't want it to be wrong, but every night I would go on Indeed and scope out for stuff, and I applied to a lot of different places. The only place that got back to me was FedEx, and then once FedEx ran the criminal background check, they said no, and then they blocked my number because it says that there's felonies on my file. I called my public defender, and they said, you know, our stuff doesn't show you're a felon. It doesn't show you have any felonies. I don't know what they're talking about felonies. RFAs or misdemeanors, but it could be because 7 or 8 of them piled up over a span of a few years. They could see you as a repeat offender of something that looks very not good. Like to people that just see violation of abuse prevention order, and this is what I'm talking about, that would cast me in a very negative light. If you saw me without knowing anything about me and saw in my file that somebody had filed a restraining order against me and I violated that restraining order a dozen times, you would think this guy's a real piece of shit, huh? Which is what the person wanted. That's why I'm trying to explain it. That the person will see themselves as a professional gaslighter in a victim mode, where they are this extreme narcissist, but thrive on people seeing them as a sad, pathetic waste, a victim that needs sympathy and heart reacts. And to do that, they need a monster. The sneaky tactic they used, that was a gaslighting character assassination to permanently destroy my life. And it had nothing to do with me or my behavior, because the person is not actually able to see me. It has nothing to do with me at all. It's just unfortunate that I was forced to be around them growing up. The worst mistake I made was telling them that I had a YouTube channel, because it's just been this cycle of using the YouTube content to feed their addiction and their obsession. But now I can't work, so I applied to be a janitor at a school. I applied to the program that as a kid I went to, that helped me when I was in DCF. I applied there. I applied other janitorial jobs, cleaning companies, small businesses, delivery jobs, pizza places, stuff you wouldn't think would matter. But when we get to that point where they look at the file, even if I explain it, they just say no. And it just is what it is. So after a little over a month now of doing this, I don't have a job still. I found one gas station that we haven't gotten to the part where they look at the criminal record, but they seem to like me, so they only need help 2 days a week as far as that goes. And then there's a couple other places that revolve around homeless people that might waiver the that they'll hire felons. At this point, I'm a convicted felon that got time served because my mommy messaged me, and I had just been like jumped, and I would want my mommy, and then she would call the cops. Imagine they tell you, I love you, I miss you, and then you're like, I love you too, and then the cops show up 2 days later and say, you're going to jail for 4 days, rip open your tent and mace you. So that's what I'm dealing with. And then when you get out, she's very happy about what happened, and she says pretty much in her own words that I deserved it and it's my fault. She can't see the pain that I went through. It doesn't register in her brain. She can't see me, and she will be this oppressive aggressor any way she can, which is spiritually. Which sucks, because I gave to somebody who thrives on that identity stealing. It's really funny that her shtick is that, like, I gave everything to help you and I think about you constantly. And the actions have never aligned with the words ever. Other than sometimes she would send money. And I don't view it as transactional. Just because you send money doesn't change anything. I'm grateful for it, which makes me like think maybe there, but then it's just, it was an in the whole time to continue the loop. It was Vecna trying to get back through the upside down to reattach to Hawkins. It was opening the gate, basically. I hope you settle down, I hope you marry rich. I hope you're scared of all the ordinary shit. Like murderers and ghosts and cancer on your skin. And not your soul and what he might do with it. So yeah, that's just, I was given an update basically why I don't have a job. You're like, you've had the car for a month. Why don't you get a fucking job, you lazy bum? And I'm like, I'm just telling you that I went and got, look. It's buried under my trash. I'm here to get rid of my trash at a dumpster at a church that they let me get rid of my trash here. So I have a bunch of shit here. I also have food. But somewhere in this mess is my physical. I went and got a physical, did a drug test, DOT certified. I think that it was a DOT physical or something. I did that, and it just doesn't matter. They don't care. So could have potentially made like $1,300 a week if I did FedEx. And I can't, because of the Thanksgiving, I'm fired from Instacart and DoorDash, and I tried to do the deactivation appeal, they don't care. So I can't DoorDash or Instacart until I get money to pay off the car. It's another $1,000, and then I have to get the title, registration, and insurance. Then I can apply to become a Walmart Spark delivery, which makes pretty good money. So then I can go to Walmart, load up the back of my car with Walmart deliveries, and then take it down the road. I have a bunch of other things I'm working on, but it is hard. I really need to remove this tattoo. I feel like that demonic Vecna infiltration happens in the neck tattoo. And I think that's why if you look into Satanism, a lot of people say when they get introduced to the Antichrist, it demands that they put a tattoo on their neck. And when I was in Section 8 and I had the brain injury and I couldn't fight back against my impulsive, intrusive thoughts, and I would wake up cold and paralyzed in 90-degree weather. Part of that, I thought it would just be so cool because Mac Miller was really important to me and my little brother, and also Avatar was really important to me. So having a Mac Miller tattoo of what he had, the flower, but it was a lotus, but making mine the white lotus because of the masters in between all the societies that were the masters of their craft, that worked in secret to make the world better. I thought that would be really cool, but after I got it, it just felt like a constant dull energy here where my impulses are constant. Like I'll go to think and I can't think because it's immediately replaced by a different thought, and it comes through with the neck tattoo. I've noted during the full moon, because I would go to create something and immediately would be replaced by something else, and it would be somebody's character and energy and personality. I'm like, why am I feeling this person's stuff? And then I look, and they had been messaging me a lot. Like as soon as I become aware of it, God is awareness. As soon as I get back into Casey, which means vigilant, and this horse blinders taken off, and I can really see the spiritual attachments that have been keeping me stuck in perpetual cycles of self-abuse, I guess, constant suffering and reliving traumas and all this garbage. When I was aware and saw it physically, I saw that there was somebody that's what they call in spirituality, the people that are suffering a lot, that don't really know how to articulate it, that go on their phone and yell at the camera, and you're like, look at these fucking psychos. When they talk about gang stalking and spiritual stuff, that you're like, what a fucking schizo. That's what a monitor, when they say the word monitoring spirit or a handler, that's what they're talking about, is that somebody who has taken the role in spirit of constantly oppressing your spirit. So usually it'll be people that live in isolated, maybe Section 8, or maybe very wealthy, or maybe powerful people, and they sort of force through ritual a connection to you and are constantly torturing you through their own day-to-day experience. It trickles out to hurt you. So they see their handler, and the orchestration of this, whatever we're in, tends to put those people, like the three people in my life were my mom, my first girlfriend, and my last girlfriend. So it's funny that the last time, and I would feel like I'd be late at night, and then I would feel her energy, my last girlfriend's energy, and I would feel the guy that she's hooking up with, and I could feel that they were ripping it out and taking it so that the good feeling and orgasm they would feel would be siphoned from me. I would feel that. And then I cut it off. And when I cut it off, the guy randomly blew up drunk and blew my phone up at 3 a.m., screaming at me, trying to see me, told me that he was like coming to my apartment all the time and just staring at me through the window drunk. And he was like complete psychosis, and it happened when I had detached from feeling like both of them were siphoning me. But the last time I talked to that ex, she said that she kept seeing, like she said she can't really go downtown without seeing the two other people I see in spirit. She says like consistently she keeps accidentally running into these people. And I'm like, it's because it's the orchestration of like a mind flare, and that's what Stranger Things is trying to get through to you in season 5. At a low level, it's like, yeah, that person has terrible issues and a sick obsession. At a higher level, it's that there is this energetic realm with the will and extension of entities in spirit, and that there are people that abuse that, and it seemed like I became targeted. And that's why I've had like 40 or 50 court hearings for bumping into somebody in the hallway and telling my mom that if she keeps trying to make me out to be someone that wants to hurt her, it's going to make me want to hurt her. And then realizing that that was her goal the entire time, whether she likes to believe it or not. Whether she can admit that that was the true intention the whole time, because that's what the behavior reflects. That's what the actions show. And yeah, it could be the extension of a demonic force. And that's the truth. But I'll end it with saying this. Is that my tarot reader. Hold on. I get tarot videos all the time. It'll be specifically the one. Oh, so I'll say two. One was that there's a guy who says like the totem animal for today's reading is this, and then that'll be like my confirmation. So I'm like, if it is the universe orchestrating these events, and it is real. That's why Netflix dropped their teaser for 2026 in a tarot video. The Netflix teaser was all about the different tarot cards leading people down different journeys. The reason that that's like, there's something to it. Whether it's good or bad, I don't know, but I'll say if that's real, and it is like spirit guides and God, a greater intelligence working through everybody, and it just meets you where you're at, and I chose to meet me where I'm at through tarot videos. I ask for the Hierophant, I ask for 1133 symbolism, and I ask for something to do with animals that I can see in my everyday life. So, and it obliges. So for this one, the first time I came to this church, which great interaction with this church, great people it seems so far, not very, you know, none of these churches will tell me if they have carpenters or not, which sucks because that's what I'm looking for. But the tarot reader, as I'm pulling into the church, he says, the totem animal for today's reading is a red squirrel in a tree. So I'm like, okay. I pull in here, and then as soon as I pull in here, the tree right in front of where my car parks, a red squirrel comes around from the tree and is in the tree staring right at me, and it looks at me and then jumps right to left from one tree to the next and then scurries off. So I'm like, okay. And then he threw out the Hierophant, you know, he threw out the King of Cups, KC. Stuff like that. So one of these, in my week hiatus, and I didn't know if I was going to come back to this. One of the readings was like really visceral, really like, you know, talk about, I see a crow, and then a crow is like right, pulls up and caws. And I hadn't seen him one all day. Stuff like that. There's a lot of obvious synchronicities, which if you live away from your phone, away from your job, and you move through life to the rhythm of God's song instead of the rhythm of the imposed song in your life through routine and settling, you'll see the orchestration of events happen very serendipitously. In that serendipitous stuff, where I felt this real strong connection to the person on the other end of the screen, where it feels like something way different than just watching a YouTube video, where there's like this huge wave of presence, and I feel it, and I feel a connection to the person, and I'm like, that's weird. And then the person cries and goes like, I know that you don't want to do what you're doing with, you're probably a YouTuber, but I'm just showing you, I'm just telling you that how many smiles you put on people's faces. And she's crying, and she's like, you made so many people smile. And you don't know the impact that you had on so many people because you're so humble, and you can't see it. So I just wanted to tell you how important you actually are, and how much your ancestors and spirit guides love you, and how sorry I am for what happened with. And then I can clearly see all of the different abuse, but then she trails off about, she doesn't want to say the word police to trigger people that are watching, but she goes around it to say police brutalities. And I get stuff like that a lot. Where it'll be a tarot video, and the person's seeing something, it's being explained to them by a higher power, and then it will describe what they're seeing, and what they're seeing is exactly what I'm seeing. Like they'll say the church, or they'll say that you're driving down and I see the number 47, and then I'm turning on to a road where the mile marker is number 47, and then I'll go further down, and then they'll say 1133 or something, and 1133 will be like my channel name, and also the mailbox number right when they say it. So another cool one was that they kept throwing out 31, and then at like 11:31 I got a notification that somebody had offered me a deal on a winter coat, and the address was 31, and it was 31 minutes to get there. And then when I got there, it was the richest home I'd ever stepped foot in. It was somebody selling me for $5 this nice winter coat. And I go there, and it's the richest neighborhood in my state, and the house is like the wealthiest people I've ever seen in my life. And I go in, and nobody's there. It's just this woman from Texas. And she was very nice. As soon as she was white. I mean, she had green eyes, so she was Irish, but As soon as she finds out I'm homeless, she just gives me all the money back that I paid for the stuff she was offering. And she gives me a $300 pair of snow pants, a bunch of clothes that I took to the donation. I donated them, and she gave me a blanket that her daughter had woven. Her daughter made this, which is really good because I needed something to block the window, which was really cool. And it was also really cool. The thing that I say about Casey and the spiritual stuff is that in Harry Potter, he has to go through King's Cross Station to meet Brian Dumbledore, who is in heaven. Right? Casey is the Acacia, the tree of life. Casey and OB in the show Loki defeat Kang the Conqueror, KC, which separates the multiverse, and the only way to fix it is to become the tree of life, or Casey, the Acacia. So this gateway stuff, this 11 to the 33. The thing that I would say when I was younger, before I knew about all this stuff, is I would just keep saying that there's something to the fact that my dad is born on the 10th, and he's a 3 life path, and he's a Leo Libra, and I'm born on the 11th. I'm a 33 life path, and I'm a Sagittarius Aquarius. So he's a balanced fire, centered, and I'm this exponential, you'd call it crazy, forward-moving momentous force. This philosophical, intellectual adventurer in rebellion, this constant churning and revitalizing, growing something bigger than yourself. Where my dad's more like a balanced, stable force. And my dad's name has 4 letters, I have 5 letters. But fire and air. And my dad, so in his life, if you say that the golden spiral, the astrology, his name, his numerology, promotes to a stable force, stagnant and expressive. Simple. And you saw that he spent his whole life on a mountain. He started off as a ski bum, then became a ski instructor. Then, next journey, he was brutalized by police and lost his ability to function, and now he travels in an RV. He had 2 kids with African last names. Then he had 2 black labs that were just gifted to him through circumstance. One guy, his friend, had committed suicide. Another guy, the dog had bought. My dad was dog sitting while he would go on yachts as a captain of a yacht for an elite family. So my dad would watch the dog, and the dog bonded to him. They were both, I think, Leos that both had 4-letter names, the dog and him, which were cool. And the other dog was also, I think, a Leo that had a 4-letter name, Hugo and Lucy. Isn't that cool? And now, through circumstance, I gave him my cat Mark, which is also 4 letters. And then he has another cat, a stray that came in named Pickles, which is pretty cool. So now he has 2 cats. Whereas I travel around this mountain in the center of the state. I'm constantly traveling and weaving in different ways around this stuff momentously. I'm not on the mountain. I'm always going around the mountain. But I also think there was this thing where, like, my dad would always find polar bear stuffed animals and keep them on his dashboard. And I always find polar bear stuffed animals and keep them on my dashboard. And we didn't know that we both did that until 5 or 6 years after we started doing it. When we met up in like 2021. And I saw that he had a way bigger polar bear in his RV, and I had a little polar bear in my car. So I looked it up. This was before I knew I was native, that the natives believed that the polar bears would take souls from one stage of their life's journey and help them get to the next stage. And I was like, that's really cool, because my life seems to be this one-on-one with people where they're in one situation in their life, and then after meeting me, they go either to a way better life or a way worse life. It's like this gateway thing with this one-on-one interaction with people that's very important in their life's journey, even if it's just like an everyday thing for me. It happens to be like pivotal, and how they treat me really does reflect the direction that they go. I see that. Before I was like, I just like to take girls on dates. If I have somebody that's like, I see them sunken and sullen, I'll take them and say, like, hang out with us, and then take them on an adventure. I would take people on tons of journeys. And I was like, that's cool that my life became taking people on journeys because my dad was a ski instructor, and I assumed that he took them up the chairlift and then took them down the mountain. The Ascended Masters type thing, the Ouroboros. Then I found out polar bears originated in Ireland. So it's this Irish native thing, the polar bear. It's also the apex predator of all the land animals. Maybe an elephant could stomp the fuck out of a polar bear, but different continent. I also think it's cool that I went to elephant because my little brother that did mushrooms told me that I was an elephant in a past life, which was cool. Because I was like, are you sure it's not polar bear? And he's like, I think you were a polar bear too, and I also see you with a lot of feathers. And then I found out I'm native because I kept having this reoccurring dream where they're forcing a war bonnet on my head while Celts are tattooing me blue in spirals. And I was like, that's the same shade of blue that my dad wears, because he likes to wear blue coats, and he lives in a blue RV, and the RV's got these blue swirls in it. And then I realized later, like, it's the same shade as what is tattooed from the blue woad on their tattoos. So we're just saying that if we are created, I am outside of church right now. If we are created, it doesn't have to be, I mean, perfection is simplicity. And then however much you want to grow into it is how much more beautiful it gets. And then you return to simplicity. But when I grow and I think about it more, I can see God's hand so much more in the character design, in the stuff that they get, like my dad's RV, or the coats that we're gifted, or the stuff that I'm gifted, the random things that we find, and how it's way more simple. Okay, let me find it. It's got to be around here. I might not find it, but somebody gave me a cardinal, and the bird's going right to left. And then they gave me 4 other little stone cardinals that are left to right. So I've been handing those out to people. And then from here, I was told to go to Plattsburgh, New York, because there was an opportunity for me, and there was churches and carpenters that might help me with my goals. And I'm like, I'm sitting here, and I'm like, I don't know if I should do that. That'll take up all my gas. I don't know for certain if when I get there, if they'll have a gas program so that I can go there and meet more people, network, and have enough money to get back to continue hunting for work. Or maybe if I should go there, but then I would have to find something quick to get me back to central Vermont where all my stuff is. You know, I don't know if that's the right thing to do. So please, universe, give me something. And I swear to God, haven't seen one of these in a long time. I'm saying like probably 2, maybe once last summer. Like once a year I see one. They're not really as abundant as you think. As soon as I asked, a cardinal flew right in front of the car, like right in front of the dashboard, right to left. Because I asked for, if there's something greater than me, a greater orchestration of something I don't understand. I'm not trying to have a schizophrenic delusion here. I'm trying to be like a scientist and work with this to gain an understanding. So if it really is that there is some higher level of orchestration, give me something obvious, right to left if yes, left to right for no. And that's helped me out a lot. Where I'll be like driving down the road thinking about, should I do this or should I do this? And then immediately I'll get one like this. And I'm like, are you sure? And then I'll get 3 like that. Or if I'm going the wrong way, I'll have like sometimes 15 to 20 over and over and over again. Like I'm driving down the road and I never see a bird at all. But then if I feel in my heart I'm going the wrong way, there will be bird after bird after bird, left to right, left to right, left to right. Even stuff like on video, I have crows swooping at me, trying to hit me, and another crow smacks it out of the air. Stuff like that. So I got a cardinal. So I was like, I just got this cardinal stone thing, and then I saw a cardinal. I'm going to go there. If you look up Plattsburgh, SUNY Plattsburgh, their mascot is the Cardinals. So when I got there, all the flags on every street is all Cardinals. And I went there, and the first person I talked to was somebody the same age as my father, who grew up in the same town as my father. Looked very similar to my dad's side of the family. somebody that probably is related to me somehow and knew my father. They're the same. They're around the same age. She was born in 57, so she would have been a year below my dad in the same high school. I just don't care anymore. I'm a Sagittarius, Sun, Mercury, Pluto, 8th house. Sagittarius is righteous fire, intellectual mastery, past life competence. The oldest soul possible are Sagittarius and Pisces. Pisces deals with the disillusionment of self and the transcendence into the next realm. A better tomorrow. The infinite, back to source. Sagittarius is the final battle. It's the smackdown. It's the I've been through everything and I'm here to just set everything straight. That's why Jesus and Zeus are depicted as Sagittarius. Sagittarius in the 8th house. The 8th house is the worst human condition. It's the worst experience possible. The house that you're in is the arena that you're living inside, and the 8th house is Scorpio, which is the dark waters. The scorpion transforming into the phoenix, very alchemical darkness. So it's this constant rebirth in the darkness, constant cut down, and having to regrow. That's why Celts called it the elder tree or the firehawk, the phoenix, Sagittarius. But Scorpio is the transformation from the scorpion into the phoenix. So I'm a Sagittarius, stellium, Sun, Mercury, Pluto in the 8th house. I'm an Aquarius, Moon, Mars, Neptune, and Uranus in the 10th house. 10th house is Capricorn. It's the strong mountain, sturdy, disciplined, Saturnian mastery over consistency and trials and tribulations. And Aquarius is the rebel, this righteous force, constantly shedding away and destroying the earth because you don't feel like you're a part of it. Disassociated and processing everything logically, no sense of real emotion at all, because it's not necessary. So you have this, how do you mix this righteous authority with this sternness? Castle. Placed away. Exalted. And then how do you explain the constant growth to the highest realms in the worst scenario? It would be like a tree. A tree of purity. Righteous essence and perfection over from mastery. And then my physical incarnation here is 1st house, and that's Taurus. And I also have Saturn and Taurus in the 1st house. My Taurus rising, Saturn and Taurus. Saturn and Taurus in the 1st house means that my physical body will constantly be forced into discipline in order to function, or else it will constantly succumb to Saturn's constant attacks. Saturn is the challenger, it's the devil in tarot. So you'll see that I'm on this journey of philosophy and creation and rebirth through the worst part of the human condition, but my inner world will be in a public figure role with this sort of detached, logical stance, and my physical, as I'm on this adventure, will be horrible trials and tribulations, but I will have a strong, sturdy, blocky, charismatic energy that people will consider attractive. It's Venusian. My name is Casey, which comes from acacia, the tree of life. No matter how many times you cut it down, you can't stop its purity. My last name is O'Brien, which literally translates to exalted on a hill, descended from giants who sacrificed themselves for the people. The last High King of Ireland. O'Brien means exalted with high authority. It's literally Aquarius in the 10th house. The acacia tree is literally Sagittarius in the 8th house. Can you guys see the obvious connection between my astrology and my name? And having parents that are basically completely dysfunctional. There was no way it was intentional to name me something that completely embodies my astrology. Then you find out I'm a 33 life path born on the 11th. The 33 life path is the last incarnation. It's this constant, like the movie Beau is Afraid, this constant Ouroboros eating itself. It's the last final challenge before you leave reality. You can't go back to a 1 life path. You can't go back to an 11. It's your final thing where you're going to go over and over and over again until you beat it. The Ascended Master, Jesus, Christ consciousness, coming back through, and then you leave. It's the divine child. This purity, humility, and service to humanity, which is why I think whenever I feel free, all I'm doing is implementing solutions that I've created to save the world, save as many people as I can. All I think about is, I used to obsess about how to save my family and friends. Now it's like I'm creating natural real world solutions with all of the stuff that I've learned in my journey to help the people who will come after me and who are currently going through what I went through in different stages. I'm able to identify and extinguish this evilness through simple real world solutions. That's just what I think about. But I'm also an 11, and whether you believe it or not, the people who run Hollywood, the people who run the country, the people who run the government, everyone at the top of religion, Bible has numbers in it. Every religious text talks about numbers, divine mathematics, and all this stuff, and how it being the sort of just a representation of God's will happen to be in this mathematical fractal geometric patterns and all this stuff. That's what numbers are, is just code and like different expressions of the infinite. That's why numerology, they take it seriously. That's why 11 in Stranger Things had to be the one to open the gateway, open the wormhole and quantum entangle with the abyss. 11 had to be the one to do it. The 11 is the gateway to higher and lower realms. In numerology, it's essentially the tree that takes things up, brings it up, takes things down, brings it down, the receiver, communication to other realms, basically. That's why 11 can go into the 11 realm, where she can communicate with all these things spiritually. They're trying to show you more of this creation that people dismiss because they weren't educated about it. They weren't told about this stuff, so it seems foreign and weird. They made it hard to handle in society. The people that created the word schizophrenia were raping indigenous children in occult science rituals that they still do on Epstein's Island. Whether you like to believe it or not, They used to sacrifice chickens and goats and stuff. So being an 1133 is extremely rare in itself. To be only a Sagittarius Aquarius is extremely rare in itself. And to be named something that's completely representative of my numerology and astrology and my name all together, and then seeing the physical evidence of that played out in my life in cycles long before I knew about any of this stuff. And then once you get that, you can see the simple little motifs like the polar bear or the tree of life constantly around me. Like my mom had this tree of life that she would put on the couch that she would sit by that was on the other side of my bed. So my bed is here, and then there's a wall, and then there's my mom where she sits on the couch and plays Minecraft, and she put the tree of life right where I would be laying, which was really cool. And then we would always fuck with that. For some reason, when I was a kid, it would just be really funny for me to go in and then flip it upside down. But I would always go right to that thing, which was really funny that that's where I kept going. And then it happened to be like one of the biggest parts of my life happened to revolve around that image, that symbolism. Then I wound up having it somehow. Whether I took it one day or she didn't want it or something, I don't remember how I got it, but then it was in my house. So I would wake up every morning and see that, which is really cool. It's also really cool that this was the first tattoo I got, which is the green heart with the wings and the halo. And I didn't think anything of it. I just liked it. I liked the idea. And then it turns out this is like the biggest symbol in Ireland, the clod. And I wanted this to stand for loyalty, commitment, friendship, and this sort of really hope, positivity. And it had to do with community. And that's what it literally stands for in Ireland. So I just wanted to share that with you. See if I can find my bird. I'm assuming there's a lot of white people talking shit, but God sees the whites as sort of a large temper tantrum or a necessary sickness that the world is learning how to heal from, which will make it stronger when eventually they are, through just numbers and genetics, eventually will be overtaken and will amass back into whatever we become 200 years from now. There'll be a lot less, and then 1,000 years from now, pretty much gone. So he's not just going to kill you, he's going to give you your victories. He's going to let you have a good experience because he loves you. He's going to let you have the MAGA Trump shit because it feels good. He's going to honor you guys and give you whatever, knowing that, you know, we're all living in an ayahuasca trip. Every one of us is going. You don't need to take ayahuasca to do it. Ayahuasca just teaches you how to see that you're in the ayahuasca trip already. I found $5. My emergency $5. Because it's going to be negative 35 next week. I have too much stuff I have to sort out. I left it messy just because tonight was the day to clean it, because it was like negative 10 for a long time. And now it is 26 degrees. I don't know. Should we do a Q&A? Sure. I'll answer your questions. Ask me questions, guys. Why don't you just get a haircut and get a job? Craft your punches, whiteys. And I'll answer them. Do I have all messages on? I don't think I do, actually. So I missed most of the messages, actually. I didn't see a lot of whatever you were saying. Oh, I did find my light. I have 2 lights. I found one of them. But the battery's dead on this one. Do you think blacks give a fuck about you while you white knight for them? They laugh at you. Are you actually unemployed? Am I actually unemployed? Yeah. Do I think blacks give a fuck about me? I don't think I have enough subscribers for the blacks to know about me. Do I think that the black people I know give a fuck about me? Yeah. I think they do. I said this before. I grew up in a 90% white state, and I've met probably 1,000 black people in my life that I've had like one-on-one interactions with. And out of those, I only have 3 bad stories about 3 black people that I didn't like. And those were people that were cool at first and then became very like, one guy was 60 and tried to sleep with me and then said he was stealing my energy. And then one we got high, and then she brought out this voodoo stuff and said that she was a gypsy that does magic, and I didn't like that at all. And then one of them was at a motel. Him and his girlfriend worked there, and they slept in the upstairs at the motel on the 3rd floor. And I was friendly to the girl, and she was obese, white, simple-minded, I would say, petty. But I was friendly to her, and she was friendly to me. And then he saw me just saying hi and like checking in and stuff, and he got really territorial and like really postured at me and everything. And I was heating up macaroni and cheese, so after he had like, that's my girl, you can't be talking, whatever, I was like, okay, man. And then I went and said like, hey, do you have a fork? And she gave me a fork, and he was like, came back and he was like, basically saying that if I had respected his boundaries, I wouldn't have gone back and talked to her after he said not to. So I disrespected him that way, and I just didn't bother to tell him that I just asked for a fork. I figured she would, so I was like, okay, bro. And then he got really mad, because spiritually that night I felt like there was this like Vecna attachment that I was fighting off again. And then when I blocked it and I felt like I was beating it again, he ran out into the hallway and was like trying to fight me, screaming, yelling at me from across the hallway. So I knew that that thing had gotten into everybody. It's just something that happened spiritually. So it was probably, it gets anyone they can. So it was probably showing him, maybe he thought I was spiritually fighting him. But there was a spiritual feeling, and he thought it was me, and I thought it was the devil. Other than that, never had a bad experience with black people ever. And I've lived in cities. I was homeless and had a brain injury, and vice lords took me in, and I lived with vice lords for a while. And they were, I think that they definitely they could turn off their ability to care at any minute. But they did care. They taught me a lot about life and self-respect. They were very cool people. They weren't gangbangers that were out killing people or anything. They weren't doing anything illegal. They were on probation for a weed charge, where they got, in New York back in the day, if you had like a certain amount of weed, which they had like $35 worth of weed. But I think one of them was living in a place where one of the guys sold it. So they hit him with intent to sell, even though it really wasn't him. So in New York, that's just a 5-year. So they were both on probation. And then there was another guy who was really cool. He had a whole family. He was a Leo. And he took me to Albany, and we went to a nightclub, and it was really cool. There was another cool story about black people is, other than my vocal coach, was like one of Bob Dylan's background singers from New Orleans. Married an Irishman, very well respected and I would say she's famous in my state. Really cool person. Got a lot of love for her. She was great. One time I was in Plattsburgh, New York, and I was in a gas station, And I felt like I had this strong connection to nature, this spiritual thing going on, and I felt like everyone there, and they were all white, I felt like they were like robots that were being controlled. They had no emotions at all. They were all way too aggressive, and everything they said was like dominance, hierarchies, and a bunch of bullshit. They seemed really delusional, like trapped in a made-up thing. And I was just walking around like, and I could feel like I had this greater sense of peace, this greater presence, and it was making everybody angry. And so that you would see them stomping and twitching and like kind of barking their words. And I couldn't understand. I knew that there was something different, but I didn't understand what it was. And then just a random black person came in and was walking around, and I saw that we both had it, because I had just been living with vice lords. I don't know what it was, maybe osmosis, maybe I had like taken in, maybe the genetics is different and there is influence or something, or maybe I just learned a different way of being in the world that they didn't have, but this other random black person had it. So I was like side-eyeing a little bit, like, I can feel that this guy has it. I don't know what it is. I have it too. I'm not sure what it is. And the guy's like, I can see you fucking staring at me. And I'm like, I'm sorry, I'm paranoid. And he's like, you don't think I'm paranoid? And I was like, no, I think. And he was like, I know what you're trying to say. Because he could feel it too. That it is just different. And as I got older, I realized that I had that as a kid too, where I had that presence, and then it made the people mad, and they would behave the same way that they did in that gas station. It was something I didn't understand, because I grew up alone by myself in the forest. Maybe it's Irish. Maybe it's like we're yearning for that wide open space in Ireland where it's cold, and that gives us this sense of warmth inside, and also this greater, higher thing of having this wide open space up there, but then the island and the water freshness. I don't know, maybe it's older genetics, like an older bloodline or something. Maybe it is the half native side. And my father did say that, or my uncle did say that my family on my father's side is closer like, I think my great-great-grandfather or great-great-grandmother was African. Could be that, could be just we were more spiritual, could be more that we've been through more pain, like we had a lot more trauma than those people. Could be that we spent a lot less time in those type of social things. We weren't institutionalized that way. I don't know. But it was this thing where there was a legitimate difference that we were both able to clock, and everybody in the space was able to clock it. I don't know. But it wasn't drugs. Never did any drugs. It is weird how white people fetish blacks. I don't know if the BBC thing is a myth. Do black people actually have bigger dicks? I don't know. I did think that they were magic, because that's what 2020 had kind of, this like the boom from Aiden Ross and spirituality, and a lot of spiritual channels that I'd find from people. Like I would be in Section 8 in a small town in southern Vermont with a brain injury, and I have my spiritual awakening, and I don't know how to function because it's like I'm not from here. It's like I don't fit in with anybody. There's something inside spiritually that only a certain people can understand, this level of presence and empathy, and how in tune I can get with the orchestration of reality, where I can feel their energies, and I can feel when an event is about to take place, and then all of a sudden shit pops off. Like I have this breakthrough, and then like the Truman Show, my best friend is like slamming on the door trying to get in, and I hadn't seen him for weeks, but as soon as I had meditated and broken through, suddenly that person is like really trying to get in, and I can feel this darkness and fear from him, like he's really trying to get back into keeping me under control. And then I found out he was like a really oppressive narcissist that said he was stealing my energy through rituals, and his dick was turning into a tree because of it. In his own words, over time. It wasn't just flat out like that, it was slowly. He said shit like that. But it was cool that guy that was obviously something wrong there was the one. But then I would go on my phone, and whatever I was struggling with, the specific spiritual problem I was going into, and I was trying to figure out, notification on my phone for a random spiritual video I'd never seen. I wasn't really into spirituality back then at all. Didn't care. Thought it was dumb. Crazy people on drugs that lost their mind and that they're not disciplined enough to focus to create. Typical white culture thing. You know, that's the same shit people say to me. But then they would be literally saying exactly the problem that I'm dealing with. They would be talking to me in a way that I understood, that resonated more with me, that I couldn't get anywhere else. And then after that, all my friends left. And then I started hanging out with the girl up the road who was black. And then met another girl that was black. And then another girl that was black. And then the three of them and me would hang out in my apartment all the time. And the cops would follow us around. Hamilton and Brattleboro would fucking walk around and follow us. If we were going into, and it's just girls. We'd go to the co-op to get kombucha. And then we go hang out in the woods. And the cop is fucking following us around thinking that we're doing all sorts of shit. Trying to posture and, you know, he's twitching and stomping like I say that the white people do when they're around this presence. I don't know. But I can tell you the evidence of it. The philosophy could be different than what the truth is, because I'm not totally sure, but that's what it looks like to me, is that prejudice, and the prejudice was an unconscious spiritual thing that they weren't able to understand that we could understand. And now that I can clock that, I can recognize it all the time. Like there will be a black guy walking through a store, and I can see that he's having a good time, and I can tell. I know exactly the space that that guy's in, but everyone around him is getting mad. Like he just walks down an aisle and I can see the presence, and I don't know if the white people can see the presence or if he's black or what, but usually when the black person is depressed and walking through the store, nobody cares. But when he's happy, it seems like everybody's kind of gravitated towards the person. I don't know if they're blessed by sunlight and that gives them magical abilities because the melanin gives them more condensed infinite to allow them to have a greater emotional expression, which is why they experience emotion so much better. Or it could be that maybe the descendants of slaves, because of the trauma and abuse they were put through for generations and generations, I don't know if you know this, but they used to fucking skin them alive and eat the skin and shit. They used to do a whole bunch of horrible things you can't even imagine back then. That could have given them a greater, those overwhelming experiences could have developed their epigenetics differently to allow them now in this world, in this time, to operate through, have the energy come through differently. I don't know. Maybe it's God's blessing after what everything went through is that they have a greater sense of emotional empathy. Maybe it's a different culture. I don't know. There is a difference spiritually, and I do like them better, man. I know that the CIA invented gangster rap to make them violent just to use the violent statistics later. I know that rappers are compromised, and even though they aren't gangbangers, they promote themselves as gangbangers to do what Lil Durk did, and now there was a whole generation for a couple of years of just extremely violent people that wanted to be hood. There was also a huge breakaway of people that wanted to just be real, and they thought that black culture meant that they would be real. So they would look to blacks for wisdom. Then there was just a whole bunch of shit with, you know, the leftovers from the 80s and division as we get from Pisces into Aquarius where that gets dissolved. But yeah, people are different. Epigenetics do affect our ability to channel the infinite because we're all living in different songs, and those songs have themes and styles and motifs. But do I think that all black people give a fuck about me just because I think that there are cool things about black people and I think that the way that people view them is wrong? I don't really care, man. I also talk about Irish and Native people just as much as I talk about black people. Way more than black people, actually. And I think you went to talking about do blacks people, blah, 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 because I was talking about white people. You were the one that brought black people into the conversation, and I hadn't mentioned anything about black people. I was talking about white people. I'm allowed to hate white people without saying anything about black people. That black and white, one versus the other, that red versus blue, that fighting aggressive thing was programmed into you to avoid the idea that maybe there's no fight at all. I'm allowed to be unhappy with certain things about white culture without being pro-black. It's not a this or this. That's something with you that makes you feel like they're the enemy. If I denounce whites, it must be that I support blacks. It's not two opposing forces. That's a program to keep you from talking to each other. Man, don't be talking about black folks. Shut up, bro, man. I'll make you suck my dick, bitch. He's draining all my energy listening to this gibberish. Full of shit. Tommy, why are you so mad, man? He's just venting. He was side-eyeing the black. Yeah, I was. Because I was like, what do I feel this here? What is this? And I was like, I'm just paranoid, man. Alright, let me catch up. My cousin Eddie invented gangster rap. White people can't jump or dance. True. The competency and focus from their discipline and their sophistication allows them to do a lot of things in life, but enjoying the moment is not one of them. That's why I call them lemmings, because they hoard together and then they need someone to lead the herd. They identify as militant in their everyday life, which they say allows them to do these great things like progress and build things and do great things, but really, what do? I think I see them work for a long time, and through working for a long time, they usually find a financial loophole and abuse it. Get some money, and then they get land, and then they become addicted to Facebook and comfort, and then they dissolve in delusion because they lack the suffering now, and they live in the comfort, which drives them further into a delusion, and then they get trapped in politics, and they don't realize they've become a serotonin addict because social media stimulates the same part of your brain that heroin does. So I see a lot of white people on Facebook that are pretty much junkies that are screaming and shit. Instead of screaming at everyone walking down the sidewalk and shitting on the sidewalk and shooting up heroin in the corner suffering, they're getting tiny doses of heroin by shitting in comment sections. And essentially, like, every comment they spew is like the homeless person screaming on the sidewalk, trapped in a heroin addiction. I don't really think there's much of a difference between white and black at all. But I think that spiritually, there is. And I don't think it's a bad thing on either end. I think it's all stemming from some type of authority that has been perpetually programming everyone for a long time. And that we're just growing into diluting these made up things to allow for the beauty of what's actually there. Do I think that whites are energy harvesting oppressors that constantly need to thrive at others' expense? I think that society has made it that way. So there are people that, it's like the Stanford prison experiment, where you take a group of 100 prisoners, and or let's say 30, and you make 15 prisoners guards, and you make 15 prisoners. In the Stanford prison experiment, those 15 guards, even though they're all men, those 15 guards, as soon as they got power, they became like tyrants that would beat the shit out of the prisoners all day, and then starting to rape them and shit. And they did that with a bunch of other different things, where if you give a group of people, you give half of them power over the others, they tend to abuse it. And all those people in the Stanford prison experiment, they weren't black. I'm pretty sure the video that I saw, all of them were white, actually, because I saw it in school. I don't remember seeing a black person in the videos of the guards beating the prisoners, and they were all prisoners originally. Thanks, Britt. Somebody posted on like a politics group that happened to bless my feed, where somebody was talking about Native Americans, and it was just a white person in New England talking shit with a bunch of memes about how the land was settled, not stolen. It was conquered, not stolen. It was purchased, not stolen. And then somebody that I knew personally from a long time ago, who is now an older woman, commented and said, no land that anyone owns was acquired without conquering. It was conquered from somebody. And I was like, Native women are still being kidnapped, raped, and dumped to this day. People go on the reservations, kidnap them, rape them, and dump them. Would you like me to pick you up and we can go down to the Navajo Res together? I'll drive you. And you can stand outside the Navajo Res and tell those women and their families that they weren't raped, their body was conquered, and the jizz settled in them. Or if you feel like the country was made by conquering and settling, and that's really what you believe, and that's what you'd like to identify with, I'm happy to bring 15 homeless people to your apartment tonight, and we will break in, conquer you, and we'll settle into your abode. If that's really what you value, and that's kind of where you're gonna put your flag down on, or whatever, that's the hill you're gonna die on, is identifying and kind of supporting the idea of settling and conquering, and just like, I'd be happy to perpetuate our traditional American value here, and go to your place, burn it down, kidnap you, tie you to a tree, and you can work the field while we settle into our new space. And she didn't answer it. She didn't answer me. Casey is Jewish. I grew up with him. My mom isn't Jewish, but she self-identifies as a Jew, even though she doesn't practice. She's native and Romanian. And Romanians are descendants of Siberians that mixed with Caucasus mountain monkeys. And she's Irish. She had red hair. And I was told my dad is Irish and African. That's what I was looking for. I was looking to piss, actually. I came here to piss and clean my car. You're at my bar mitzvah? Dude, I wish instead of a bar mitzvah, I had corrupt cops jump my dad on my property and then break him. But he held his own. It took a lot of cops to get my dad down. And it was for not using his blinker. And he used his blinker. The cop was going like 80. And then it turns out we're like 7 miles into the mountains, 8 miles away from the police station. And somehow there were just 6 cops there. No way. It was a staged attack. They just used the blinker to start the argument long enough to get everybody in position, so when the cop reached into the car with his gun out, they were hoping to instigate my dad into reacting so that they could charge him with disorderly or resisting arrest, and then use excessive force to permanently disable him, which they did. And then we lost everything. I didn't have a bar mitzvah. I had my entire family and my property taken from me. I had my whole life stolen, literally. I got to watch colonialism because they were jealous. My dad was funny and he had rich clients. My uncle said that girls have always gravitated around my dad his entire life. My uncle was like, I used to be really jealous because my dad just has this way with girls. Which was so cool because I never really saw my dad as an older brother. Because I didn't meet my uncle for the first 20 years of my life. I didn't really know he existed. I knew a little about him. I've only had 2 conversations with him in my life. So, figuring out that my dad had a little brother that loved him and looked up to him was really cool. But that's why they were mad. I'm sure my dad would get braggadocious and arrogant, but I don't think he ever did it at anyone else's expense. I think sometimes he was just feeling himself and girls liked it. So the guys would get mad, man. They did it to me too. They still do it. And I'm homeless, man. Can you imagine being jealous and competitive with the homeless schizo? With teeth that are like a Simpson? But yeah, I've got 300 friends on Facebook, and I post something on Facebook, just like share something, and I look at my analytics, and 1,000 people do it. I've got like 200 people that aren't friends with me on Facebook that are consistently looking at my posts. And you can see how they found you. They're searching for me. Like at least 100 people regularly are searching for my name on Facebook and scrolling through all my photos and shit. Where's my vape? I need it, man. Come on. Do I have any caffeine? Not anywhere that's easily accessible. I need caffeination. It's a very interesting time to be alive. It's really cool to look at comment sections, man. Like, seeing people, like older white people that didn't grow up with the internet, and now that they found it, what they've done with it. Now that once they got blessed with social media and the internet, to see like people in their 50s and 60s, 70s and 80s, what that's become is really cool. And I feel like it's a blessing to be smarter than they are, you know? Like, I'll make a post that's just like a little bit coherent. So like a post I made, there were in a group of 200,000 people, somebody was bitching about freeloading bums taking SNAP benefits and wasting all their taxpayer money and how we should just beat them and force them into working. And it got massive support for a long time. So I waited till it died down, and then I simply posted, hey, the better way to handle SNAP benefits is not to beat them into working. That'll just make them shut down more, and you'll have more problems. You have to find jobs that they can do, like opening up your farms to allow them to shovel shit and sit out in the woods long enough to heal from the horrible shit that they've been through, and then allow them without expectation to roam in and do a good job, and then they will slowly come back into functioning. But just trying to beat them into doing it will never work. You'll just make it worse and worse and worse. Also, the minuscule amount of money that comes from your taxes to go feed somebody else goes right into usually Walmart or these mega corporations. The answer to your SNAP crisis is not to get these people off SNAP. That's not going to work for anybody. It's going to make things much worse. You'll realize that there's not enough jobs for those people anyway, and those people aren't good at the jobs, and they're not ready for it. It will be not a good transition. And it will eliminate people that genuinely need them. Instead, what I suggest is that half of the SNAP benefits are only eligible if you go to certified local businesses like farms and homesteads to get them good food that stays in the state. That way, your money, through two people, through helping somebody eat And then also helping support a local business grows your economy. It keeps the money in the state longer before it's taken by the insurance company and healthcare, and then more taxes by the government or big oil. Before these, and I said wealthy government corporations, I said before it goes to insurance companies or people who are way too wealthy and view you with the same distaste as you view Snap recipients. And it got 1 like out of 130,000 people. But then I go and look at my analytics and 50,000 people scrolled through all my photos. Isn't that crazy? 50,000 people read it and then were like, who the fuck is this guy? And then scrolled through my shit. But nobody said anything. And what that means is that they couldn't come up with something shitty to say. They realized, yeah, the money from Snap should go to local businesses. So it stops going to Walmart and big corporations that don't care about us. And yeah, it is true that we shouldn't be beating people who can't function into functioning. Why did we think that would work? Probably because their parents used to whip them with belts or something. A lot of shit went down 80 years ago. Like, I meet a lot of, like, my ex-girlfriend's grandmother used to be chained to a tree most of the day. Another guy I met recently who's like in his 60s said that if they let him, they couldn't have a babysitter or anything, and he was an only child, I think. So if they left him at home, he would run away. So for most of the day, he was restrained to his bed. So while they were at work, he would be restrained in the bed all day. And now that guy's a great carpenter, but if he doesn't go to his 3 therapy appointments a week, he's fucked. He's a nut job. And he's born the same day I'm born, 12/11. People were not better humans 80 years ago, and mental health was definitely an issue. 80 years ago, fathers raping daughters all the time, torturing migrants, segregation, no civil rights, but they were programmed to look good on the outside, keeping up with the Joneses, the idea of white society. Also, Joski, I don't think you were around 80 years ago, man. I hear horrible shit that was going down back then. Horrible stuff, man. Like, you'll see an old guy with no teeth, and he was like, yeah, my dad knocked it out of me when I was little, and it just never grew back, and I couldn't afford dentures, and then I just decided I don't really care about it anymore. Yeah, it's just like virtue signaling shit. Just the same shit, man. I want to talk about blue hair people. There's some bad bitches that got blue hair, man, and piercings. There's some bad bitches that are blue haired, man. Yeah, there are some nut jobs. The unfuckables. On other sides, they're either extremely Republican or extremely Democrat. It doesn't really matter which side they identify with. It's 2 sides of the same bird. It's just there are some crazy people that identify with politics. They think they matter. I just saw an angel say they think they matter. I think it was an angel, I don't know. Some extra dimensional being said they think that they matter. But one of the on my hometown's page, there was a bunch of political people talking bullshit at each other, and I said I think the worst problem with the white race is that they are unable to have a cookout and just hang out without high school popularity contest and epigenetic garbage forcing them to stay in these dominance games, and they can only function at the expense of others, and they need an other to hate, so they constantly, if they don't have somebody to attack, they'll just attack each other, and they can't just hang out together. That's why you never see massive cookouts of people hanging out. And then you go to places like where there are these giant festivals where there are tons of people hanging out everywhere. None of them are racist. Like if you go to Florida and you go to the beach where there's millions of people, not millions, but like thousands of people on the beach, and they're all hanging out having fun, you don't see separation. You don't see division. They're just kids having fun. Then you go to like where there's less populated people, then the program division gets more and more. If you put enough people together long enough and you're all just having fun, and the idea is to just have fun with nothing else, you're just there to have fun, you don't see racism. There's too much abundance. You're not worried about black people stealing your girlfriends. There's just so many girls out there. Latinos, Russians, Colombians, Chinese, dirty knees. Fucking Millie Bobby Brown's there with Gromit, Wallace and Gromit. She's there. And they're just having orgies. They don't care that that black guy's got a bigger dick. They're just waiting for their turn. They're just having fun, man. So I said, I think the problem with the white race was that they didn't allow the other people in, and they can't hang out without it being this stupid high school popularity contest and dominance. How have I been? I'm good. You only see division in large blue cities? I've never had a blue person try to sideswipe me with their mirror if I'm walking down the street. But half of the trucks that veer over to try to slam the back of my head with the side mirror so I face plant, getting hit with something going 40 miles an hour, and then I look up and I don't have time to record the license plate. But they got, like, many of them had Trump flags. I see a lot of people that identify as blue that I would consider creeps. Like, that guy's a fucking creep. But the red people, I would say they're just as creepy, but they were able to have their own small business. I'll give them that the red people, they definitely have a work truck and they're going to work. But I would consider them just as creepy, and I wouldn't let them around my kids as much as I wouldn't let the other person around the kids. But the other person usually has a job, like the blue person has a job that it generally would take a lot. What would you say? Would you say a small business with a work truck, like carpentry or landscaping? Not even carpentry, because carpenters don't really, I don't see carpenters that are very political. I see like landscapers and road crew people that have the cigarette in their arms out the window. You know, the blue people, they have jobs in like accounting, office buildings, management stuff. I don't know. To me, it's like I can't be left or right when I'm in the woods. I'd rather just be both. I think everything is much simpler than they make it out to be. They make it complex because there's so many secrets they're hiding from each other. Politics became extremely complicated because people are hiding shit. That's why there's the division. All the stuff behind the scenes. Because they're trying to keep you unaware of their abuse of their power. So they separate you to divide and conquer. That's what I think it is. Because homeless people, if you need something and they have something, they give you that thing. Homeless people stack up blankets And if they don't need the blanket right now, they're like, you can use this blanket. Do you need blankets? I got some blankets. That seems pretty simple. But they make it out to be, commie, you communist piece of garbage, oh my god. And I'm like, that's so much more. Like, you've extended yourself so far into theoretical bullshit. If you're living in a neighborhood and there's a guy living in a roof that needs to be fixed, and you have the means to fix the roof, fix the fucking roof. What political, what's it called? Leaning? Which way am I leaning when I say that if there's somebody that needs something and you have the something, just give them the something. So they stop worrying about it and they can do other shit. Why did the Democrats actually bring tens of millions of rapists into the country? That's pretty funny. That is pretty funny. How did they know? How did they know they would be rapists? But here in my state, the migrants aren't abusive. The migrants mostly, I know that the college in the center of the state outsources the teaching of agriculture to an immigrant because the immigrant's much better than anybody in the state at it. There's an immigrant that's so good at farming and understands it so well that he has a job now, probably under the table. I don't think he's illegal. I don't really know. I know he's not illegal, for sure, because I've talked about it before. But I know that he works with the school to teach kids. I know that in any part of human endeavor, if you corner somebody like a caged animal and cut them off from their needs and become the enemy to them, they're going to respond as if they're a caged animal that can't get their needs met in a world surrounded by enemies. I didn't have to be an illegal in the country to experience it because I experienced it homeless, where the entire community turned against me and I wasn't able to get my needs met, and I was met with violence every day for the idea of me rather than my actual character, because nobody had the capacity to stop and say, hey, what's going on, man? But they would like freak the fuck out for like days, and then they would amass an angry mob and come at me. So I began to hate whites. I began to hate my state that I really wanted to save and help and make a difference and make it better and make it cool. It had nothing to do with anybody else. I was just like, wouldn't it be so cool to, like, in the summertime, just plant so many more trees, like apple trees? Imagine if public parks just had apple trees, and then every fall, like, you had a fence around it so nobody could get in, and then in the fall, you could just have a little stand and you could pick out an apple, and it wouldn't be like you have to pay for it. You would just go and say, can I get one apple, please? And they're like, sure. The park ranger would be like, sure, here's an apple. You can go pick one apple. Wouldn't that be cool? And then there's like hundreds of trees and stuff. And then that brought me to like, why don't we just make this huge food forest that like goes all the way up the state? And then why are there horses that are just in their stalls and they look like stray dogs that need help, staring out their stall at you, and they don't even go and hang out in their pasture anymore because it's so small, they just sit there depressed? Why don't we get a fucking big truck with a big trailer and do like a foster thing where somebody gets up every day and goes and picks up 15 horses and then takes them out to this big empty pasture, because we got tons of them, and just lets them hang out and roam around, build big fences to let them roam around and have fun. And at the end of the day, horses are smarter than dogs. And you can get dogs to do it. Why can't you just get the horses to come when the bell goes? You all just get in position and then load them back up onto the truck and take them home. And why does that have to, find out how much it costs for gas, and then find a way, maybe sell the manure, make a fertilizer program from it. So you while they're hanging out and playing, you just go and shovel it all into a side by side, and I don't know. But people don't make an effort to enhance the quality of life. They mostly just spend time complaining about other people they claim to be destroying their quality of life. I don't see any progressive people anymore. I just see a bunch of complainers. And I had all these ideas, but then the state did so much to me that I don't feel like they deserve it anymore. And I feel like probably people with a higher education than me and a higher authority over the people probably see it the same way, as like they don't really deserve the changes I could implement with my government position. So hell yeah, I'm going to take all their money and leave. Fuck them. They can suffer because they deserve to suffer. Like there's an old folks home, and there's this big empty field that's been for sale for 3 years at the bottom of this hill that the old folks home overlooks. At the end of the forest, you go through the forest, there's a dirt road. On the other end of the forest is that cabin that I used to stay in. If I had that cabin, that pasture of land, and the forest connecting it, I'd put a dog park, public gym, public showers, make a park. The people in the old folks home could come down every day and hang out with tons of different people. And when they looked out their window, instead of seeing just the view, which is nice, and everybody going to and from work, they would see people having fun. And they could sit in the old folks home and see people enjoying their life all day, instead of being there and people forgot about them and they're just waiting to die, watching reruns of 2.5 Men and shitting in their pants. They could just look out the window and see love, animals, and they could go down there. It's so close. We could go-kart them down and they could just hang out and have conversations, and people could play guitar down there and it become a cool hangout spot. But nobody ever will. And I'll never have the money to buy that. And God forbid I get a handout to do that. You know how many people's lives I would change with that? But I would be a freeloading bum getting a handout from the government. Because that little pasture costs about $1 million in this state. For those properties and what I want to do, it costs $1 million. If you just gave me the land, it would cost me maybe 2 months of work. But by the time I got all that stuff, I'd be 35. And I would have wasted my life to do that. So I have to virtue signal to white people for whatever thing they're mad at every day, and pump out content on Facebook that aligns with their beliefs long enough to farm them for money the way the politicians do, using them as cattle, laughing at them all the way to the bank, and then doing what I want to do with it. Because that's what Nick Fuentes does. That's what Andrew Tate does, and Sneeko and all these people. Political streamers, Erica Kirk, they don't give a fuck about you. They're pandering to you to get your money. If I wanted to make the last days of these old folks' lives better, and make the community better, and make a change and help horses and dogs that are suffering in isolation in a state that you can't afford to live in, I would have to talk shit about blacks and hobos to you guys. Hey bitch, I'll give you 10k USD gifted to shut the fuck up. My Cash App's in my channel description. And my Venmo and my PayPal. If you'd like to donate me 10k, 1,000 would go to the car. I would keep 1,000 for gas so I never have to worry. And I would devote the next year of my life to solving the homeless crisis by building fold-up wagons that are painted like a red barn, red and white, that folds up like this with a actual shingled roof, that nice like black rocky roof that looks like, you know, it looks nice. and it all folds up into itself, folds down, the wheels fold in so you can carry it like a suitcase but then folds out, broom handles that come out like a rickshaw, legs that extend down. You just put the wedges on the back and front so that the wheels don't move so that you can lay in it. Then the homeless people don't have a tent throwing trash everywhere. They're in a nice looking red barn that you look at it and you're like, that looks nice. And you know that there's somebody that's not going to freeze to death. You know that they have clarity and peace. They feel safe. There's no more police brutalities like what happened to me where they rip the tent open and empty a can of mace in your face for trespassing. You have somebody that's getting clarity and healing their trauma so that they can enjoy their life more, which makes everyone happier. Instead of giving $400 million to end the homeless crisis, which went right back into the politicians' pockets, for much less than $400 million, I could get these 4,000 homeless people in my state a situation that would change the trajectory of the rest of their life. But when I go, all the people are concerned about are their paychecks. When I go speak at the homeless conferences, everybody was in this stupid competition with me, trying to like make me look bad. And I'm like telling them all the stuff that I went through and the solutions I have to fix it so nobody else has to go through what I went through ever again, in a way that honors those people instead of beats it out of them and tries to force them to conform to something that they're escaping from in a drug, into a world that they create. I'm trying to make the world that they create come to life. So that they don't feel conquered at their job. They feel excited for all the great things that they can do. That's what I would do with 10K. Then maybe I'd get a dog. I drove around the entire state, man. I went to like 15 to 20 different churches. And I said, hey, do you guys have anyone in your congregation that knows carpentry? I'm just looking for help building this, and I can't afford the tools right now. So I'm just looking to pull up. I have plywood. I could go to a bike shop and get wheels off a bike they're not using. I could get the parts together. I just don't have the capacity to build it, and I can't. I've applied to 50 jobs and none of them have gotten back to me. So I'm here because I'm at a loss, and the government has said that they don't care and it would be better to go through the faith community. So I went through all the government programs at the first 2 weeks, and then I've spent the next 2 weeks going to churches, and I found nothing. But occasionally somebody would give me money for gas to get me to the next place, to the next place, to the next place. So I went to 3 different states, to a bunch of different programs and churches, and there's nothing. I don't know where that $400 million for the homeless went, but it didn't go to me. There was nothing available. So if I want to do something that all your taxpayer money is supposedly going towards, that taxpayer money is not available. Your paychecks and your income and your property taxes supposedly going to this problem, and that problem is the money's not getting to us. There are people in power profiting off of perpetuating our suffering, and they're encouraging you guys through propaganda to continue this abuse, to keep that machine going because it's taking federal funding to these programs. And we're not getting any of it. The tents that we get are donated. The blankets that we get are donated. The food that we get is donated from people in the community. They're spending their money, as well as their taxes are supposedly going to help us, and it's not. They're downsizing. All it really does is that when people suffer from other members of the community and they need an outlet to vent to somebody, they have somebody that cares, that is paid to connect them to organizations that don't help. So you have people in positions that tell us there's nothing that they can do for us, but at least they listen. So you essentially, some of the government money is going towards people that can listen to us when we say, this guy came to my tent and he cut everything up and dropped a trespass notice, stole all my shit, kicked the shit, did a false police report on me, said I was disorderly, and then the cop showed up and charged me with disorderly for no behavior. When he did the arrest, he tightened the cuffs until I bled. He pulled my hair when he pulled my hood down. And then when I said, what are you doing? Then he got me with resisting arrest, and I went to jail for 5 days, and I'm going to go to court now for probably 2 years until they drop it, when I finally request body cam footage and discovery to be added, and when they get scared of a lawsuit, then they just drop the case. At least they listen to when I say, like, man, I wish, you know how easy it would be to get a Temu ghillie suit and just shoot their kid with a crossbow? So they're paid to let us vent so that we don't get together and start doing shit like that, like put pipe bombs in your exhaust pipe. Throw a Molotov through your open window while you're watching the football game and burn your grandpa. You know, that's what at least that we have that. We have an outlet, and so it doesn't bottle up. But it's a war, man. People are posting 10 site locations in my state. They're going to those 10 site locations, and women are going missing. They're doing cop shows where they record actual police molesting and beating homeless women pretty much to death. And thousands of people on Facebook are celebrating because they assume that person must be an addict with no evidence on the video that person is. They just assume it because he says it in the caption. But to anyone with common sense, like, that's just a woman that's probably been through a lot. And they instigated her into disorderly. Sometimes they completely manufacture a crime where it's not just them being upset about something, it's just they're standing there. I've watched 7 cops pick up a 5'2" guy and then curb stomp him, and then pile drive him into the ground. 7 of them put 200, they're all probably 200 pounds each, they're fat as hell, onto his face. I see people posting that a guy was dealing drugs, and he wasn't dealing drugs, he was just black. And then people were shooting at his house. People were threatening his kid with an assault rifle. Like sending him a picture of an assault rifle pointed at his kid's head. Just because some guy said that he was something. So the easiest solution I can find is 4,000 wagons, and then I need a piece of land to get them one at a time. You want to be a cowboy so bad, going down and hunting Indians. Why don't you go down and help somebody, man? Wouldn't it be cooler to ride in on a horse and fucking save somebody's life? Clipped. That was cool. Hey, the mod's here. What's up, GG? I modded a random homeless person once. Good to see you, man. I appreciate the people that reached out. I'm not going to freeze to death. I wish I would sometimes. You got time today? Well, I'm about to get off, I think. Maybe I'll go for a little bit longer. I was answering questions. If anybody has any questions... I'd have to check my food stamp balance. Because I got... Somebody gave me a Yellowstone Ranch hand pasta. Where are you from? My family's from New York City, but I was a first-generation Vermonter, which arguably the best state. When you go to other states, everybody's pretty much the same. When you go to Vermont, the social isolation and the encouragement to be different creates a lot of really unique people. Facebook has kind of ruined that, but before we had social media, things were really cool. I grew up completely isolated, alone in an abandoned ski resort because my dad was friends with the boat captain for the DuPont family for their yachts, and he would house sit. And the ski resort had been sold, so for 4 years, from when before the Hermitage Club bought Haystack Mountain, when it was just an abandoned ski resort, there was nobody there, and I would just hang out with my dog or just wander around by myself. I would run up and down the hill. Sometimes my dad would take me sledding, where we'd go up to the big one of the big ski slopes, and we'd sled down it. There was a beaver pond, and we went in and tried to build a dam once at the creek, and it was just us up there, nobody else. The nearest person to us was like a mile and a half down the road, and they didn't really leave their house. It was just an old guy. We had all that to ourselves. I grew up pretty much in complete isolation. I was an only child, and I had maybe 5 or 6 play dates in my entire life, until I was like, one day 6 cops jumped him for not using his blinker when he did use his blinker, and then the cop pulled his gun out and tried to reach into the car, and then they pulled my dad out, and it took 6 cops to get him down, and then they ripped me out of the car and made me watch. And then after that, my dad, he stopped being a ski instructor and got a job as a valet, and then he is now, I think he's a caregiver for one of his friends that had a stroke. But he was homeless for about 10 years in an RV. But that's what he was meant for. He got to live as a ski bum, and then he got to live with the richest people in the world. Found out it sucks, and now he's back in the RV, connected to nature. I once saw my dad, because that ski chalet was at the end of this dirt road with a tiny little hill in the back. It was at the very end of this dirt road and a bunch of $1 million ski homes that nobody lived in. Maybe 2 weeks out of the year, maybe. We never saw him. And my dad got to live there. And he had problems from the trauma. So he would kind of struggle with cleaning his space and papers. I would often see him just walk, when I'd go to visit, he would walk in circles thinking, which I do too. We pace. If you've ever seen the video of caged bears that leave captivity and they put them out in the forest with a camera, the bears will just walk in circles over and over again, even when they're out in the forest. It was kind of like that, where you just walk in circles, and I walk in circles too. Now I drive in circles. But really cool that up on that mountain out there, there were bald eagles up there. There were deer and bear. There were raccoons and squirrels. And a grouse or a pheasant, a baby, had found my dad and had bonded with him. So when my dad's going in circles in the middle of the driveway, there's this pheasant, full-grown size pheasant, following him around. And when the pheasant wanted my dad's attention, it would nip at his ankles. Play with me, pet me. He would nip at his ankles, and my dad's like, come on. And my dad had 2 dogs. It was really cool. And he didn't have to pay rent. Maybe some of his disability would go towards helping Skip. We called him Skip because he was skipper, the captain of the yacht. But for the most part, he got to stay there for free. And I got to stay there for free. I didn't have to pay anything. One time, I was mad because I was like, why doesn't anyone like me? I dropped out of school in freshman year and nobody messaged me. Nobody cares. Why doesn't anybody care? Why am I not good enough? And I would bottle it up and freak out. And one time I punched the heater, and there was just a little dent in the heater. Nothing big. And then I kicked a wall, and there was a tiny little chipping of the drywall. It was really small, but to my dad, that detail would bottle up. And eventually he got really mad about that because he was like, I was putting his situation in jeopardy. It was disrespectful. I get it. But I was on antidepressants, and I shouldn't have been on antidepressants. You shouldn't be on antidepressants as a kid, even if you're dysfunctional. It's not good for you. It'd be better to spend a summer out in the woods. That fixed it. Being out in the woods fixed all the problems I thought I needed antidepressants for. Yeah, he blew up. He would bottle things up and blow up. He only did it a few times. But after that, I went into DCF custody. So I was homeless since 13 or 14. I had just turned 14, I think. Or maybe 15, I don't know. But it's been over 10 years now that I've been homeless. My mom's in Section 8 and my dad's homeless. I'm saying the point is that he didn't have to work to get the money. God gifted him that experience because of his character, his heart, because of who he was as a person. maybe his skills as a ski instructor, he was able to live with the wealthy elites. I hope he didn't go on. I don't think he ever went to Epstein's Island. I think he stayed in southern Vermont. But he got to live that experience without having to work for it. And he got to see that it sucked. The richest person I've ever met killed himself because he couldn't find love. And gave everything to my dad. And then rich Jews from New Jersey found a loophole and stole it from like a debt from 40 years ago. God gave him that opportunity, so he got to experience it and realize it sucked. Like me, I wanted to be a stand-up comedian. I wanted to be a streamer. I wanted to be a gamer like Markiplier. I wanted to be a traveling pickup artist. I wanted to make music. I wanted to, all different types of music, like country, grunge, whatever, tons of different stuff. And I wanted to make it all kind of my style. But I would create these characters and identities of myself that I wanted to show the world. And it would never work. I would end up beaten and thrown in jail and jumped on the street and like tortured and horrible shit happened. But it would always play Hotel California. After those big experiences, I would hear, "Ready a room at the Hotel California," you know. But then they say that the year that you're born in your zodiac, so I'm a cat or a rabbit, an Earth cat or Earth rabbit, 1999. And they say that when you, like, I think Michael Jordan's also a cat, and he became globally famous and won the NBA championship, whatever, his first one in the year of the cat. They transcended the thing where they get the big victory and the whole world sees it on their year. Like Andrew Tate's a tiger, and in the year of the water tiger, 2022, he was the most Googled man in the world, the most famous man, the top G. And there was, all the clubs were playing his songs for him, and he got the celebration and everything. They got their thing. Like Michael Jordan wanted to play basketball. Andrew Tate wanted to be seen for his intellect as a Sagittarius 1. He wanted to be the driving force that changed the world, whatever, with his wisdom. And he got that in 2022. And I wanted the world to see all these things that I had created. I wanted to have become tons of these different characters that did these different things, and I wanted the world to see that. And it never worked. But in my year of the cat, homeless, suffering, and trying to save homeless people, homeless kids, helping people every day, being like unofficial security for these places, going around kind of making a difference, hooked up with some girls, and it got to be in my suffering and my struggle that I really value. I got to be trudging through in extreme depression, extreme dysfunction and trauma, and fighting to make my songs. And I would make my songs on my computer in the park on Lake Champlain, looking at everything. And then when I would go back to my tent, I'd open my phone and see Kai Cenat, KC3, become the biggest streamer. I got to watch Queso become the biggest gamer. I got to watch Casey, Loki, and OB defeat Casey Kang the Conqueror, where Loki became the acacia tree. I got to see Call Me Carson go by Gary, but he built Yggdrasil, and my dad's name is Gary. I got to see Kurt Kaz in the Kurt Kaz Conquest, the KCC. I got to see the Kurt Kaz Conquest, the traveling pickup artist. I got to see Casey Rocket become the greatest stand-up comedian on Kill Tony and become the golden ticket winner, and the whole world loved Casey Rocket. I got to see and then literally I'm driving up Ferrisburg. I'm going to throw a Molotov into a garage that had stolen my Dodge Magnum because it was rare and I had aftermarket tires or rims that were worth $3,000, and they just stole it from me and forced me into this suffering where I had to fight for my life, and I lost people, and I wasn't able to make my dreams come true because they took it because they wanted it, because of greed. I was just going to throw a Molotov and burn them all. And then my wheel fucking flies off the car and goes that way, and I skid into this church parking lot. And then it's a Sunday, they have a service, I go in, crazy spiritual experience, and then I go back to my car sad and freezing, and then I watch the KCC, the Kansas City Chiefs, win the Super Bowl. All the things that I found Kurt Cobain that year, literally. I wanted to make a song about how it's not my fault what happened to me. That it really wasn't a dysfunction on my end. It wasn't a mental illness. It was horrible circumstances that I didn't deserve that forced me into this. It wasn't anything that I had to do. It wasn't like avoiding accountability and being a perpetual victim. It was extreme abuse for a long time that developed into CPTSD. It was isolation that forced this degradation of self, and trauma, constant trauma and abuse that forced me into this. And I had to fight to overcome it. And I didn't identify as a victim. I loved the challenge and I fought through it, but it's not sunshine and rainbows. It was hard. I'm still grateful for it, and it's an epic story. And I've learned a lot from it. But it still happened. And then at the end of it, on the last day of the Year of the Cat, before the year of the Wood Dragon, Cassius Culpepper, KC, drops a song called Who Hurt You? And it's just the thing I was trying to share. And it blew up on social media and on YouTube, and everyone saw it, and it popped him off. You didn't make your daddy leave you and your mama. You didn't make that girl that broke you break her promise. Hell, you didn't ask Uncle Sam to send your friends to that foreign land. It's time you face the truth. It ain't the man in the looking glass who hurt you. No. Yeah. I'm a lot better when the phone is off for some reason. Stuff like that, man. And that Casey symbolism is everywhere. (11:3) and 11:33 and 1113 and stuff like that. Like, it's not coincidence that 11 on Stranger Things' name is Jane, because J is the 10th, so 1 simplifies to 1, and she's 11, and that she's with Mike, whose M is 13. Stuff like that. And at the end of it, I don't know. Either I put it into writing and it becomes the next Bible or something, or like it's the new thing for the Age of Aquarius where they look back at the channel and they're able to piece together the teaching here with the Acacia and the Sagittarius 8th house, Aquarius 10th house, Acacia O'Brien 1133, Sagittarius Aquarius, and the orchestration of my life with the proof. Like, isn't that what the Bible is? It's just proof that the things happened. That you can see that my dad's name is Gary. He's a Leo Libra. And it's all about the god of the wild, or Cernunnos or Loki. And I had a girlfriend whose nickname was Gary, and she had a dog named Loki, and she was a Libra, and her brother's name was Leo. And Leo's best friend's name was Vincent. The first time I met Leo and Vincent, they were in the basement playing a game called A Way Out, where you play as the characters Leo and Vincent. And then Call Me Carson goes by Gary, and then his developer, Code Husky, his name is Loki. I think I said that the girl Gary had a dog named Loki, and Cernunnos symbolism. And then you find Loki with Casey and OB, and Loki's thing is he has the scepter with power, and Gary means mighty spear. So Loki with the scepter, with the help of Casey and OB, defeat Casey, Kang the Conqueror, and then Loki becomes the Acacia, or Yggdrasil, the Tree of Life. And then Call Me Carson, who goes by Gary, his screen name, and his developer Loki built this Minecraft base called Yggdrasil in season 3 of his Minecraft series. And just that over and over and over again compounding, where I could show you 26 years of just the same names over and over and over again. Like Kai Cenat met Ray, and they blew up, Casey and Ray. When I went to go see my foster brother, John Michael, whose dad's name was Ray, and when I met him, we were in competition with this girl named Ray, and then I ended up dating a girl named Brianna, whose middle name was Ray, but she asked people to call her Ray. There's the Brianna there and Ray. And then I break down in this town a year later, and then everyone's against me because they think I'm a junkie and they keep trying to kill me. And the only people that help me is a girl named Casey and a guy named Ray. And they lived on opposite ends of the town where their jobs were, but then a year later, after meeting me, they wound up moving in where her business is here and his business is here. And then it turns out I go around looking for public showers and I can't find any and I can't build any. And then it turns out that Ray, next to Casey, has a shower available for homeless people if they need it. But the problem is that Casey and the Ray, the 33, the sunlight of God, the Ray, Casey and Ray, me, always has these crows everywhere I go. If you look back to my content, it's just every time I feel peace and I have this ray of sunshine, the crows hate it because it interferes with their territory and shit. The energy they don't like it. So they're always screaming at me. And then what happens in real life, other than the spiritual stuff, in real life, the crows, in a greater sense of things, in the greater story of everything, a guy whose last name means crow and his company is called the Ireland Construction Company, he moves in just outside where Casey and Ray are, and he has mental illness, and he goes and sort of attacks Casey a lot. He bothers her all the time, supposedly. Like, I guess she parked a little bit too close to his garage, even though it's not marked or anything, and whatever, and he threw like a big fuss about it. He was really mad about it, and the way he did it was wrong, which made her not want to help. If he said like, hey, I need to get in sometimes, do you mind not parking too close? But instead he went in and like, you need to move your fucking truck. So now Casey and Ray are being bothered by Mr. Crow. When you go through the... and then you have Gary lives next door to them. And then the recording studio up the road is run by a guy named Vincent. It's not up the road, it's just on the hill overlooking both of them, Vincent. And Vincent means light, and light shining. So the light shining of underground recording studios there. It's underground where the thing is. It's like in a basement. But I was trying to say the 8th house, the Sagittarius in the 8th house, underground, Vincent, the light. And then you have other stuff like the guy now, the people named after my exes are in the surrounding buildings. And then one of the big stories is that there was a guy named Alex who gave me acid when I was young and fucked me up. And I always wanted to like get involved with music, but he was very narcissistic and competitive. And I felt like there was a demon attached to him. When you get to where Casey and Ray are with Mr. Crow and Vincent and Gary and John and the Dickerson and my ex's name and all these people around that area, in the center of it is spray painted the word Alex with demon horns. So it's just like, you can see just constantly these recurring cycle of names. Like one time, for the whole month of December in 2023, I got my car stuck in an access road where I would park to get DoorDash orders. And then I was stuck in the field there through November. Because it didn't look muddy, and I had seen a car go that way, but then for some reason, even though the car in front of me went, the ground gave out under me, and the wheels full extended, and I couldn't get the car out. So I was stuck there for months. A guy named Vincent kept showing up and shooting at me. He was schizophrenic. He would take a hatchet and say he was a Viking that killed me 1,000 years ago, and he would chop up a tree and say, "This is you," and he would chop up the tree. And that was before I knew that my name meant a tree. In that Irish special and everything, that there was a guy who said he was a Viking that would chop down the tree. And I would escape that by going to talk to a girl named Alex. Before that, I dated this girl, and I had a brain injury, and I was in the passenger seat of her car, and she would just kind of cart me around, and I couldn't really think well, and I was suffering. And one time she brought me to a guy named Vincent's house, and she left me in the car and went in there for an hour, and I don't know if they fucked or not. And then at the end, that was at the beginning of the relationship. At the end of the relationship, the last time she saw me, she hooked up with me. She came over because I had this great energy that I felt, and she could feel it too spiritually. And it felt like she stole it from me. And then she was like, "I'm going to Alex's house," and then she left. So and her name was Cleo. Her name's Chloe, but she's a Leo rising, and people would, when she would go get Domino's, they accidentally called her Cleo a lot. They would misspell it. But her name was Chloe, and she was a Leo rising. But the Cleo kept going. And when I started dating her, she gave me this or somehow through her, I found this Cleopatra statue that I put in my bathroom that my black cat would hang out around all the time. So Cleo, Alex Vincent, Leo, Alex Vincent, same thing. And then there was an Alex and Vincent when I was 13 that I talked about. Just over and over and over and over again. Inescapable. Like literally, I went to Newport to go to the homeless conference, and then my car got stuck in the snow because it was the only place I could legally park. And I didn't realize I didn't have winter tires. I thought I could make it and I couldn't. So I had to call Ray's Towing to pull me out. Then I went to the homeless conference, and the homeless conference, I swear to God, was ran by a girl named Casey Winterson. It's just over and over and over and over and over again. I guarantee you, if I go to Maine and I stay out there long enough, just deep in Maine, it'll be an Alex, a Casey, a Vincent. So it's 2:22:22. I'm gonna leave.